Good morning,
Good
Dot,
morning.
Shane.
Good morning.
And Dot is very unhappy about the fact that I've got you in your house in the morning, which I think is much more fun to be seeing you. But it's great because we always grab conversations when we get together at London at Canopy or when we're at Chacoa. And Shane and I have now just spent about probably longer than we've ever spent chatting, which is very good. And Dot's now back. And for those of you who don't know, these are the most amazing chocolate makers on the border between Ireland and Northern Ireland. And I'm going to let you say where it is because I always get it wrong. I always sort of say that it's sort of like on a peninsula, but it's not. It's basically between the mountains and the sea, and you've got amazing views, and it's an area of outstanding natural beauty. So tell us a bit more about where it is and everything else.
Okay, so we are NearyNogs Chocolate. We're based on the coastal road in Carlingford Lough area, which is almost immediately halfway between Belfast and Dublin. So we're on the eastern side of Ireland. We're situated between the Irish Sea and the Mourne Mountains. So behind us are the mountains and in front of us is the sea. So it's an area of outstanding natural beauty. So we're very lucky to be here. Our factory is located in a semi-rural destination. So we're in between towns and cities. But yeah, so we're very happy where we're located.
And you've got lots of solar panels, but how did you decide on getting into craft chocolate? What's the history? How did you find?
Well, it was very accidental. One of our oldest daughters was going to India to go work in an orphanage, and she worked and saved up some money, and then she was short a little bit. My mom was over visiting. We did an open mic night fundraiser. We had Irish stew, music. And then my mom said, "Oh, I'll give you my recipe for sea salted chocolate fudge." And that is the beginning of all my trouble. Anyways, made the sea salted chocolate fudge. It sold on the night. Somebody said, "Oh, could you do my wedding favors?" Another person said, "Why didn't you come to my market?" And I didn't know anything about those things. So had to do some homework and some research. And then I did some wedding favors, did a few markets, and I thought, well, maybe this is good therapy, because also at the time, one of our daughters was really sick and she's going to Great Ormond Street Hospital a lot. And she's 14 coming 50 now. And so we've spent, well, every year, I think she's had like 40 odd surgeries now. It's a lot. But anyways, chocolate became like my therapy. And it became like something else to think about or to research when I couldn't sleep, because maybe I was looking after her. Also, at the time, it was kind of supplementing our income. But when you go to markets, people want to know, where does it come from? Where does it get made? And, lots of people have dietary things. So people are asking, can you get no soy or whatever? And anyways, I was buying chocolate to make chocolate fudge. And so I just went back to that person, that the ingredients supplier, and I said, so I was just wondering, I just had this thought, I wonder if I could maybe just make my own chocolate. And I was wondering, do you sell cocoa beans and cocoa butter? Because that's what I apparently need. He was like, no, you can't do that. You can't make it from home. You wouldn't have the equipment. You wouldn't be able to take the cocoa butter out. You need to Dutch process it, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, what if I want to taste chocolate, how it tastes like without all these things? What if I just want to taste how it actually supposed to taste? And he was like, no, you can't do it. It won't work. So I thought, okay, thank you. And that was my green light. So I went to Shane and I said, I think I need to just find a little bit of money because I need to buy a little bit of equipment. And I think this is how it all starts for probably lots of people. You just need to buy a little bit to get a little bit to do something small. And the next thing you know, it's bigger. So I got ordered in my first little bit of cocoa beans, and they're really hard to get at the time because nobody had them. And I think it was 5 kilos of Madagascar. When they came, I remember the postman came to me and he was like, like holding them out like this because it was very aromatic, fermenty smelling. I thought, oh gosh, I'm going to be in so much trouble. Shane's probably going to kill me because I've spent this much money on something and I don't even know what I'm doing really. Roasted them. The kids woke up in the morning time and they were like, oh, did you make brownies? And I was going, no, but I have these amazing cocoa beans. So it was a bit of a novelty and scare factor. And then I'd bought a Premier grinder. And we have no cracker or winnower, so we had to, rolling pin shell them with by hand. It was fun.
We got the roasted beans and we put them in a pillowcase. And we hit the pillowcase with a rolling pin. And then you put a hairdryer in the pillowcase, and all the husk would fly out.
Yeah, you have to keep rotating it to get the husk out of the cocoa beans.
I mean, if we had to do that today, you'd have to have about 20 guys standing there with pillowcases and hairdryers.
Maybe 100,
Maybe more. Yeah.
maybe more.
Yeah.
Anyways,
So you got a proper winner.
But I'd made our first batch of chocolate, and we had some chef friends at the time, and I asked them, do you want to taste this? And they were just like blown away. They said, what did you put in that? Did you put berries in that? Or what did you put in that? How did you make it taste like that? And I said, well, actually, I think that is how real chocolate is supposed to taste. And I don't want to offend anybody anywhere, but we're so inclined that all chocolate, we just grew up with this notion that all chocolate just tastes the same. So I didn't even know. I was learning, though, that different origins have very different defined flavors, notes, colors. It's a whole amazing thing. And I think that's why I never got bored with it. And I think that's why it was such like therapy at the time, because you could just read nonstop about flavors and growing practices and fermentation practices and the difference between co-ops and everything. So here we are today, and I made more batches, and then I had to pull Shane away from what he was doing. And
so really it was a very busy hobby in the beginning, 2011. The catalyst for us was, as Dorothy's already mentioned, was one of our daughters who was 2 at the time. She wasn't well. So basically the surgeons told us, they said that our treatment was going to be very intense for the next 12 to 24 months. So we'd have to find alternative employment around her treatment. So that's why I quit my job. And then we decided to sell chocolate
at markets
and everywhere we could, to kind of figure out how we could make ends meet while her treatment was ongoing. But at the time, it was supposed to be a short-term thing. It wasn't supposed to be a long-term thing. But as her treatment developed, it wasn't wrapping up anytime soon. So we thought, right, we're in this for the long haul then. So we kind of put all our chips in the middle of the casino, so to speak, and just went, right, let's just go for it. And then we eventually, our story reached the ears of like an investor, and we had a lunch meeting, and a mutual friend introduced us, and we did our little Dragon's Den pitch, talked about what we were up to. And so basically he loved it, said, listen guys, I want to help you. So we got a loan from our friend, and we were able to buy our first roaster, a few other small pieces of kit just to get us going. And we thought we'd hit the lottery, not realizing we were only beginning. And we moved it out of our kitchen into an industrial space, because it was just, we've got a lot of kids at home. We've 12 altogether.
Not at home now.
Well, yeah, some of them are older now. But we couldn't really run a chocolate business from our kitchen. It was just too much. Even though we had environmental health approval and all that kind of stuff, we had no space.
But we had 2 kitchens at the time, in fairness.
Right. So
It's still pretty hard to be running it at home with 12 kids.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because sometimes people, we do live in Ireland, let's not forget. Sometimes people come home late from the pub, and you don't want to be wondering, is anybody diving into any chocolate, at 3 o'clock in the morning?
So you got to sort of like put it on the lock and key. So then you move the facility.
Yeah. And so we thought it was massive, but we filled it very quickly. A logistical challenge for us, and also a business challenge, would be, we're paying rent for an industrial unit and our house bills and stuff like that. So you have 2 outlays. And from a bean to bar point of view, you're a small business, so you have to figure out how to cut your costs where you can. Also, whenever we're making chocolate, if our daughter had any issues, we'd have to turn all the machines off, leave work, drive to where she was at, help her out, go back to work. And we actually worked it out. After a period of time, we were losing about a day a week of production, just from separating our business and our domestic needs. So we eventually found a property in 2018, which was an old potato farm historically, and it had 3 commercial sheds, and there was a 6-bed house with it. It was already listed as a commercial property, and the house was rented as a residential property, so it was a split property. Very hard to get a mortgage on. So we did campaign for about a year to get that property. We had to raise a lot of the capital ourselves, which was hard.
We ended up just getting a business loan to get the whole thing because you just couldn't, no one would touch it.
Yeah, so it was so we did eventually secure the deal. We got the property. We've just been spending the past 4 to 5 years cleaning it out, putting in plumbing, electrics, 3-phase, all the stuff you need to run a commercial chocolate factory. And we kitted it out in mind because of all the lessons we've learned, that we wanted to have a retail space. We wanted to have people to be able to come in. Because we quickly realized that lots of people have no idea what bean to bar chocolate is. They just don't know. You can make the best chocolate on the world, but if that message doesn't reach the customer, if that message doesn't reach the chefs or people out there, they don't know how amazing it is. But you find that if they do get that message and it's communicated properly, people switch very quickly. They want to try it, they want to buy it, and they become loyal followers, because they just don't understand. Because there's so much to learn. And I think education is a massive, massive, massive gear in the development of bean to bar chocolate as an industry.
Yeah,
so
I think
go ahead.
No, I mean, I think we talked a bit about what you do in education. We should definitely chat a bit about that. But I think you are right. I mean, I think, if you go into a pub, you can sort of see somebody pulling a Guinness or pulling a pint. And when you go into a specialty coffee store, even more, the barista will, they'll take the roasted beans and they'll make you an espresso or a flat white there and then, but they'll talk to you about it. Whereas in chocolate's case, people just don't get the fact that most people don't make chocolate directly from beans. They just buy in ready-made. You were talking about earlier, which is, most chocolate makers just don't realize the gunk that's put in there and that they're trying to get you to scoff rather than to savor. And, if you work on the beans, which is exactly what you guys do, that's what brings the flavor out. But you need to show them what the difference is. So I think having that facility is fantastic.
It's all part of the experience.
Yeah,
all part of the experience. So because you do a lot of experiences with kids too, don't you?
Yeah, we do. We have a lot of school groups that come in, and I think when we used to do markets, we'd get lots of, sometimes kids would be around the table and you talk to them about, the difference between apples growing on a tree, branches out here, and cocoa pods growing on the trunk. You would just talk to them about all kinds of different things, and it was always this mystery. So now it's much nicer when school groups, school classes, restaurant groups come in, cafes come in, chef teams come in, loads of different people come in, and they can do a full tour, and it's all tactile. They can touch the cocoa beans, they can shell them as part of our tour. They can taste everything along the way, and different percentages as well, and different origins, because you get people in all the time that go, oh no, I had a 70% and no, it was just far too bitter. And then you give them a couple different 70% to try, from the cocoa bean, the 100%, maybe an 85, a couple of different 70s, and they're like, oh my God, this is like, I never knew this. And so, I mean, we live also in an area where there's lots of distilleries, breweries and stuff. And so people get that when you say it's like a wine tasting or a whiskey tasting, not a whiskey, it's like a whiskey tasting would be very similar. People get that.
I think the great thing that whiskey's got is that all whiskey has to be made with good ingredients, whereas not all chocolate's made with good ingredients. That's the difference. Your chocolate has only got, the inclusions you put into it, the beans and a little bit of sugar. And that's the same way that whiskey would be. It's not, it's so people sort of do get the ingredients bit.
Yeah.
But and so I have a couple of questions for you, which are slightly strange, which I always ask all makers, which is, why do you make bars? Why not any other format? I know you do make some other formats, but just what about bars?
Well, there's a little hash tag called bean to bar. So we do bean to drinks, we do bean to cup, we do bean to rabbit and eggs, and bean to Santa, and bean to truffle, and all that. We do all those. But I think there's something really dynamic about a bar, because not to put a pun on it, but it breaks the mold. Because when you have traditional chocolate, industry chocolate, and people relate that's a bar. And if craft chocolate, I think if there wasn't a bar in there, people wouldn't get it the same. It would be just like, oh, it was something different. And I think it's nice when you have a bar form, whether it has just an origin or also inclusions. And I always say in our place, because I love our chocolate community big time. And I always say, do you know, I love our chocolate, but I love other makers' chocolate. And I said, and if I stood you here with 20 of my chocolate maker friends, and if we all made the same bar, you would find we all put a little bit of a different twist on it. And that's because we all put our heart and soul into what we do. And it's the farmers put their soul into it, and we put our bit into it. And that's what makes it different, because there's so much heart that goes into it, I think. So you have to
And
do a
do you-
bar. I mean,
Yeah,
you don't
you know,
have to.
I think I think the question is that's a brilliant answer, and it's absolutely fantastic. I guess the next question I've got though is, what time of day do you think people enjoy your bars? And how do you think that compares with the way that people will, for example, have a Snickers or have a Mars bar or have a, you know, what I would sort of call mass market, mass produced chocolate?
Yeah. Well, I do hear a lot of people say, or a lot of people send us messages in the evening time, like after work, maybe before they've made dinner or after. I don't really know, but oftentimes we'll get Instagram pictures in the evening time. Do you know, this is my treat. Do you know, this is my my bit of luxury in the day. This is my reward for doing all the things I had to do in a day.
Yeah, I mean I think that's what we find with our customers too, and that's what we find when customers buy your bars from us, is that it's for them, it's a special treat which they want to savor at the end of a meal. It's not something which is a sort of sugar pick me up, because you know your primary ingredient is always cocoa beans. It's never going to be. So I think that, yeah, that's definitely there. And then you obviously do all this education to get customers to understand more about what it is that you're doing. And what do you think it is which resonates with customers? Is it the flavor? Is it the stories about the beans? Is it the environmental and the ethical? What do you think most resonates, or is it all of them in different ways?
There's a tremendous amount to unpack, and you really do have to kind of that's why we do tours and experiences, is because there's so much to unpack. We've also started to make videos of what we do here as well, because as you know, we're doing an online video now, but people understand that media of how to get that message across. When we start a tour, we always start off with the opening sentence of, you know, did you know that chocolate's a fruit, or it comes from a fruit? You know, really, because in the West especially, we've got almost amnesia as to about where chocolate comes from. You know, because our whole market has been developed off a colonial past, we don't really know a lot of the stuff. So to re-educate people and inform us about all the stuff that we've lost the knowledge of, or we're never taught properly anyway. We think about chocolate as not just a finished item, not just as a luxury consumable, not just as an indulgence, but actually as a quality product, which is almost got this whole world behind it that we haven't been told about, from the human aspect, from the ethical aspect, from the environmental point of view. Huge factors in there. And then also about the process. The process is a major part to how we enjoy chocolate, how we experience it as a gift or as a usable product. You know, all those factors dictate the end result, you know, and there's a lot of work that goes in there, you know, so yeah.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I mean, it's an amazing product because everybody eats it. You know, 25% of Brits eat it every day, and 75 every 3 or 4 days. And as you say, most people just don't know what it is, and they don't realize that actually you should be savoring your chocolate, not scoffing it. And in fact, you should be savoring all your foods. So I know you're going to be doing more education. Tell us a bit more about how that's going to be working, and we'll definitely encourage people to go and visit you, because it is I mean, everybody I know who's been to you, and I know quite a few who've just said it's absolutely wonderful experience. So we definitely need to sort of push that as much as we can. What other sort of new initiatives, and what are the other big plans for the year?
I think we've continued on the back of what we developed last year. Coming out of COVID, the tourist board really kicked off in gear to try and save the tourist industry. So we got wrapped up in that. We live in a beautiful place, and they really want to promote businesses in our area. So we've been linking closely with, we call them stakeholders, you know, which would be the tourist board, local city councils. Sometimes politicians come in and see us. So we're really trying to get into primary schools more, We are finding that already, that our Easter calendar is quite busy. Our June calendar is already busy with schools wrapping up their end of year. They want to end it on a chocolate trip or something like that. And it also comes into part of their curriculum as well. So in the curriculum in some local schools, they've actually put fair trade or cacao or the rainforests, or, because chocolate ticks a lot of boxes in terms of all the topics it covers, whether it's politics, geography, or environmental or ethical stuff, so they want to make sure that people get a good experience with that. We have opened up a little coffee shop in the past 12 to 18 months, attached onto our little factory. And really the point of that is because we want people to come and visit us, because we're semi-rural, we want them to stay a little bit longer. So we attract them by having, say, tray bakes that one of our family members would make, or baked goods, sorry, thank you, that's better. But the coffee shop is there primarily to serve hot chocolate over the counter, but also we have a coffee option as well for people who just want to have a coffee and things like that. So
yeah.
And
No.
also we done, I think a big thing for us the past 6 months and moving forward is collaborations. I just think, I think that wherever you live, whether you're a chocolate maker or whatever you do, collaborate with your local community, because, and around you as close as you can, whether it is baked goods, whether it's chefs, restaurants, cafes, distilleries, cheese guys, whatever, because
even just did one there with a ceramic company who make pottery stuff,
yeah,
Oh,
because
really? Oh.
yeah, because you think people who make pottery, what do you put in pottery mugs, ceramic mugs? Hot chocolate. So it's good because then you're promoting their business and encouraging people to be aware that she makes lovely pottery, or she or him or her, whoever, or then if it's the cheese guys, you can, we've talked a lot recently about charcuterie boards, because we did some distillery nights with people and they said, oh, you have to have a charcuterie board because the people are going to come in, they're going to be drinking, they need to eat something. And traditionally charcuterie boards look more like just meat, cheese, crackers. And we've said, well, actually no, let's shake it up a bit. You can put cocoa nibs on it, you can put nuts on it, you can put have your grapes and your cheese and your chocolate of different percentages. It's change it up. It doesn't always have to be the same. Yeah.
You definitely want chocolate boards. And the other thing which I think you do fantastic well is your inclusion bars are amazing. So you've got, I love your seaweed. I think, the seaweed bar, they're just some brilliant ones. Any new exciting ones which you're going to be doing on those?
Well, we did a soda bread bar. And for here, that was quite confusing because people don't know that soda bread is really big. Irish soda bread is like a pan bread, and so a griddle bread, if you will. So I made the soda, then cut it up, toasted it again, and so it was like tiny pieces, and put it in it. Because when we went to the Northwest Chocolate Festival, we wanted to take something with us that's from here. So we took the soda bread bar, the Do Them On bar, the saltwater day bars, our old fashioned. Yes, we have a few more irons on the fire, things we're working on because it's cherry blossom time here. So not giving too much away. But
We'll try and get those. But you also do some amazing origin bars. I mean, I thought your Mexican bar last year was just fantastic.
Oh, thank you. We're in the process. I think we emptied in Mexico 70% yet over the weekend. So
we'll have to get some more of that.
Yes, some more of that. Now, I do like our origin bars. I think I hadn't worked with Madagascar since we started, because at the time I didn't like a dry red wine, and I think that the beans that we had at the time, well, we're still learning. So that's everything's a school every day, is always learning. But then we got in some Madagascar, and if I don't say it wrong, Sarah Fandre, and I think it tastes like really sweet red fruit. And then we've got our Togo bar, which is more like a traditional chocolate. So I think it's a lovely introduction when people are not familiar with craft chocolate, because it kind of has more traditional tasting notes to it. And Abra, that's her farm, and I just think I love to support what she does. So, and that Togo, I always tell people, if you tried it 100%, 70%, and you tried it at 60%, you're nearly happy at every percent. So it's fun.
Absolutely fantastic bars. So keep making more great bars, and we should do one other quick video when I've got some bars in front of me. We should do a joint tasting. You should tell me what I should be looking for with them.
Okay.
So we should definitely be doing that. But and I would just encourage everybody again just to basically go and visit